Grand Rising, I'm Ron Usha and welcome to Conversations on the Spiritual Journey. Today I have with me LiiChu from Malaysia. How are you?
I'm good, Ron, and thanks for having me again. It's 4 p.m. now, and I think it's like 8 a.m. in London.
We've spoken before, so I'm not going to go through the full bio. So if you want to check out what LiiChu said there, please check out the previous episode. But I will say this about LiiChu. She's an executive coach, Qigong therapy, PSCYCH-facilitator, and journeys with people to discover their true self, purpose, and mission in life by connecting to the core of who they are. And she also works in women in leadership circles.
Thank you, Ron.
So, LiiChu, I thought I'd start with last time I was speaking with you, a week beforehand, I became ill. And you gave me a treatment over the phone. Well, not over the phone, yes, but we were on the phone. Can you say exactly what you did?
Ah, well, it's what we call in our Qigong practice distant healing. And sometimes I equate it to, well, I'm not sure if this will be blasphemy, but it's almost like when you offer a prayer for someone who's not feeling well. And so it's something like that. But exactly what I did was it was part of our Qigong practices where we do what we call distant healing. I would imagine that you're actually right in front of me, and it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. If you're not feeling well, I could connect with your energy, and I could sense, generally maybe what was going on, and if there's any blockage, and I could send you energy, clear off blockages that allows your body to actually do its own self healing. So it's really a kind of like an energy healing, but in our practices, it's called medical Qigong healing. It's, how was it for you?
I remember, so we went through the practice on the phone and then I went to sleep and I woke up and I felt so much better. So thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, it's amazing, and this is what one of the vision and mission that I have for our Qigong practices. It is actually something that is so accessible to everyone. It's a technique and a protocol that is one can learn easily. It's so accessible, and you can use it for your own well-being as well as to help your friends and your family members. And it doesn't cost you anything except maybe a little bit of your time. I remember when you spoke to me, actually, let me backtrack a little. After the call with you, I actually did a session, where I actually clear the energy of, I clear off whatever blockages that I felt I could sense. The idea is once I clear off the energy, what we call we discharge, we ground the energy, then what happens is that it allows your body to kind of like regulate itself. When your body is able to regulate itself, where all the blockages are out of the way, then your self healing can occur. And actually, what happened was after doing that, I held on for about like half an hour, and I could sense that it was not fully cleared. So I did actually go one more round. I did, I did. And sometimes it's like when somebody is not feeling very well, the last thing you want is to do a very strong a clearing or unblocking or send very strong energy because the person may not be at the state where they can receive strong energy. So what you want to do is you want to do a gentle first level of unblocking, discharging, grounding off, then you send very soft energy. And when the person has received a little bit of the energy, they can actually take on more. You can go in another round of, sometimes we say recalibrate, but it's actually regulating. I'm
So
glad you felt better after that.
I did. Thank you very much. So these blockages, when they occur, we feel illness. But how do these blockages start? Is it emotional?
It could be emotional. It could be triggered from the mind. Like if we are mentally stressed. So what happens is that if you're mentally stressed or an event stresses us out, then what happens is that like when we are stressed, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in. All right, and then when that happens, your blood flow, your energy flow gets obstructed. So how that occurs is, in fact, I'm glad you asked that because my partner, Corinne, and I, we were actually just designing a program. So one of the things we ask the participants is, what do you think trigger your stress, and how do you know where the stress is? And it's very evident. Where it shows up in our body is when we have headache, we have shoulder pain, we have neck pain, we have back pain, or for whatever pain that we have. And sometimes that can also cause the immune system to be compromised. That's why people catch cold, they have flu, they're not feeling well, or they kind of like they feel that their energy is off. So when we are stressed, the blood flow is actually affected. When the blood flow is affected, it can affect the smoothness of the flow of the blood and the energy. And that's how you get some of those blockages. And when you have physical pain, what happens is that the muscle gets constricted, it gets tensed up. So when it's tensed up, and the thing is, sometimes we're not even aware that that's happening. Some people will have the stress showing up on their jaw. They clench their jaw, or the jaw tightens. And then there are some people who that's the onset of the migraine. Because when it is tight on your jaw, on your neck, then what happens is that it does block the blood flow. So there is a science to it. So when that blockages happens, it does affect your overall well-being.
So if people carry stress a lot of their lives, is that the precursor to many of the illnesses and injuries that occur in the body? I guess a lot of stress happens in early life that we don't even think about. And like you said, maybe often we're not even aware that we're carrying these feelings and these stresses.
Yes, indeed. You're right, Ron. Yeah. I like what you say, we carry it. It can be a precursor. In fact, it usually is, and we're not even aware of it. So self-awareness is the first start, basic, in us trying to claim back our health. And sometimes the answer is very simple, but that doesn't mean that people will accept it and do something about it. We are so into the habit of covering it up, or telling ourselves, we can overcome this, it's okay, push it under the carpet, and then until it snowballs, until you get that migraine that you can't, that you absolutely have to do something about it. You can't ignore it anymore. And sometimes it gets to be a bit too late. And what you said earlier, Ron, about the emotional state, sometimes we carry a lot of grief and anger in our body. And we think that, it is something that we either can just brush it aside, or we think we can overcome it. But the emotion needs to be released into something else, because emotion is also an energy. And sometimes it needs to be acknowledged. It needs to, very often it needs to be acknowledged. And when we don't acknowledge it, what happens is it needs to find a way to release. And if it doesn't, it will find a place in our body. It resides there. And over time, it will find itself to be known. It will find a way to inform us. And sometimes by the time you find out about it, fairly late. It's fairly late, yeah.
It seems then that we have it back to front. So often we don't look at the cause, we look at the manifestations. And if healing's to occur, we need to go back to look at the root of where it started, where the blockages are, and then from there the healing comes.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Um, Sometimes, or my approach very often is where it comes from is not important. But knowing where it is and to be able to release it off, for me, is a better approach, because sometimes there's no need to revisit, and once you can release the emotion and it's done. I don't need to know who hurt me 30 years ago. I know that something is blocking me, and there are certain incidents that just gets me triggered. And there are many ways to actually release it. And the idea is to just release it so that then I'm able to live a full and live in life, and I'm able to celebrate who I am, who I'm supposed to be, who I can be, and the reason is not important. Otherwise, the danger, the risk is that we still get hooked onto that story. I normally tell my patients or my clients, the story is not important. Really, it's not important. And once the emotion is released, they would agree it's not important anymore.
I like what you said, that's so powerful. So it's just being aware of it. We don't have to relive the old traumas. We're just aware of it happening. That is it. Yeah, that's a beautiful way of seeing it. Because that means it's feeling what's here and now. We don't need to engage the mind and going back into what happened and why it happened, which I guess engages the mind as well. Still, it's in the here and now.
Yes. It is the here and now. And if one wants to go back, you still have that choice, but when you go back, the idea is to maybe look at it from a different perspective. And sometimes I tell my clients, I say, one of the most powerful ways to look at it, sometimes not about being self-critical or self-judgment, but really the powerful perspective sometimes is to look at where our own behavior actually caused a certain situation or event to occur, how we actually contributed to it. I said, if you go back, and that can be a very powerful twist where you become accountable, you're willing to be accountable for you played a part in certain part of the event, not about blaming ourselves or judging, but to know that, yes, I did play a part. And where this is very powerful is that then moving forward, that we are not so perfect. And when we can reach a stage where we can accept that we are not perfect, that there's a lot of imperfection about us, but again, it's not about being self-critical, but acceptance that we are beautiful and perfect as we are, and there are some imperfections, so to speak. Then might we have some space to allow someone else to be who they are and who they are not. And this is part of the pillars of our Women Leaders program. The first pillar we talk about embracing your uniqueness as a leader. We don't have to be everything for everyone. We are different, we are unique. It's to find what is unique about us and leverage on it. Then we can really be engaged with what are our gifts that we were meant to share and use and leverage for the world and for the community. And we are not copying somebody, but this is me, this is unique. I'm here, I have a special gift. And to really celebrate that I am this and I'm not this, and it's okay.
Oh, that's beautiful. Looking at our inherent gifts, who we are, what have we come to express.
Yes.
Did you discover these things for yourself when you were quite young?
Um, it's more like I used to be very gung ho when I was very young, and I used to be very competitive, and I need to be at the top. And after a while, it became so heavy that um, it's almost like, I'm sure you've heard of where we become the victim of our own success. It's not fear of failure, it's fear of success. Because once you achieve something, you got to be better and better and better. And that got to be too much for me. And yes, it's true, I was always comparing myself with the best looking female student in the school, the one who articulates the best, the one who's the best in sports. And it became quite tiring. And after a while, I felt that, kind of like very lost as in who I am and who I'm not. And it was a very long journey for me. Ron, it wasn't until the last 10, 15 years that I began to slowly embrace who I am and who I'm not. And it's still a continuous journey for me. It isn't like I reach a space where, I know exactly who I am and who I'm not, and this is who I am. It is still organic, finding out a lot of things that I am, that I'm not. There's still a lot of personality about me that I resist, that I can accept, I can't. So it's still an ongoing journey for me. And I think that's the most exciting part of my journey. That even now I'm shy to say I've already defined who I am. I'm still defining, and I'm still hoping to uncover more of who I am. and to be honest, to build sometimes the strength and the courage to accept who I'm not. I'm still comparing myself, but perhaps less. And I develop more self-compassion for myself. And then I have this little thing that goes out and says, yeah, it's just an excuse for not going after what you ought to be getting. And then it goes like, yeah, thank you for sharing. Now go away. And let me enjoy where I am right now. So to answer your question, did I discover young? Not really, because I was too busy competing and comparing myself with others and trying to be someone else. Always trying to be someone else until lately, the later part of my life.
I think a lot of us grow up trying to be someone else, trying to beat someone else, comparing ourselves to someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're trained into this, especially in the society that we live in, that we always, and I guess at the bottom of it is that we're not good enough. We have to be this.
Yeah.
We have to be this.
Yeah. And using someone else's achievements to measure ourselves. That, to a certain extent, that was good to push me forward, to always help me so-called on the continuous improvement part, so to speak. But then, for the sake of whose approval? I'm always competing with someone else for the sake of competing, and where does that land me? At the end of the day, then who am I? Who am I without all this competition? Who am I without all this stress to propel me to so-called, go up, to improve myself in areas that I felt are areas that are acceptable, that people would be able to recognize, or areas that society recognize. But at the end of the day, is that who I am, and was I born for that? Or was I born for something else? I mean, what about you, Ron? What about your journey? I mean, how it has been. I'm curious because you have a very interesting journey, Ron.
Yes, I think so. I remember I was 13, 14. Well, I start from beforehand. My parents were, they went to church, or my mum went to church. And I was forced to go to church on Sunday mornings. I was forced, you have to go to church. And then at about 11, it didn't really make sense to me. So at about 11 or 12, I said, no more. I said, no more.
Wow.
And then I remember always being I was drawn to Zen. I read a bit about it, and then I got this book. I think my first book on Zen was, I think, something about the Eightfold Path when I was about 14 or 15.
Wow.
And then, of course, I think I was drawn to as well, being 14, the martial arts and the Zen and going up into the mountains and meditating, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I was really, I really connected with me in a way that my mum's religion did not. And it was in yourself, not an outside God, in yourself, which I found really taught to me. So that was the kind of beginning of it. And then I did a bit of reading and, you know, started some small practice of meditation. I wouldn't have called it meditation at the time. I didn't quite know what I was doing. And so, and then later on I started meeting people, alternative ways of looking things at yoga. And my girlfriend, I had a girlfriend, and she worked in a alternative health center. So of course they had
Uh-huh.
Reiki healers, crystal healers, yoga
Yeah.
practitioners, meditation teachers, astrologers, past life therapists. So I was around it all the time. And
Wow.
yeah, so, and then, so that's how it kind of started. So it was always a kind of searching and looking, and which led me to meeting people, constantly learning about things.
So which part of those kind treatment or therapies that attracts you the most?
Oh, I was interested in all of them. But, I liked, because I found I didn't. So I can tell you a treatment I had with a Reiki teacher. I was telling my friend the other day. So I had a Reiki session. I had a bad ankle,
Mm-hmm.
and I had 10 sessions. So on the first session, I had the treatment, had it. I felt okay. Session 2, session 3, session 4, session 5, a bit better, but I still had the bad ankle. Session 10
Right.
now, I'm lying down there, and I'm lying on the couch, and I have the pins in my body, and I'm
Wow.
lying there, and I felt this, and it
Wow.
was like, wow. Anyway, so, and the ankle injury gone. So the
Wow.
practitioner comes back in and he says, Ran, it was never the physical injury with you. You were carrying around the emotional pain of it, and that is what you had to release. And that
Yeah.
was a very powerful moment.
Yeah.
Very powerful. Because in that release, I just felt something just dissolve, like a bolt of lightning in my body, just, and the whole thing, and
Yeah.
straight away it was, at that moment, I knew the pain had gone.
That's so beautiful. So I guess you answered your question,
Yeah,
your first question at the beginning
yes.
of our conversation. And so, does it matter where that emotion came from and what was the story?
No, it was in the moment. It was here, and I didn't need to go back into
Exactly.
the story.
Exactly.
I didn't need to at all, and that was the great healing practice. And then, you know, as you go on and you do more learning and practice, I guess the realization of just being the awareness of it. Because we
Yes.
spend so much of the time, or I was,
Yes.
unaware of what's going on.
Yes.
Or even, like you said, pushing it away, not even looking
Yes.
at it.
Yep. Yeah. And telling ourselves it's okay, I can overcome it, I can push through, I can push on, I can go on, but the body has a different idea of its own.
Mm.
And this is where I really truly love the kind of holistic treatment approach that we have, Ran. So you have experienced, just 10 sessions, not trying to compare to the convention treatment. If you go to a doctor might have many approaches that some could be invasive, but this is so non-invasive. This is so gentle, and this is healing. This is exactly what we mean by healing. It's not a cure. It's really healing, and spiritually, mentally, physically, healing occurs. When that emotion is released from your body. And there are a lot of practices that you can take on that allows you to continuously release whatever that your body could be consciously or subconsciously holding on. It requires us willing to connect and then be building the space and the ability to stay with what we are not comfortable with, so that then we can engage, connect with our body, with the wisdom of our body, with the messages, and help it to be released. Because the emotion is always in a process of transforming into something else. As soon as we acknowledge it, we create space for it to actually process into something else. And you don't need to hold on to it. It's only stuck when we refuse to acknowledge it.
And I like what you said as well, is that when we ask the question, sometimes if we look, the answer is within ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. More often than not. And if it is, if we quiet down our mind enough, we'll get those answers. Just to share with you, I had an experience where one morning I woke up and there were a lot of thoughts that came through my mind, and I had to write another program. And it was the first time I experienced it. It kind of like says, go pick up your book and write, because a lot of ideas were coming through. So I wrote, and after a few pages, I said enough. I put my pen down and I said I'm going for my breakfast, because it was still very early in the morning. And there was a very strong tug that says, sit down and finish what you need to write. And so I said, okay, I'm going to sit down. And I wrote, after a few pages, I said, I think it's enough. I want to stop. Not that I need to, I want to stop, and I want to go and have my breakfast. I found myself getting off my seat, and something kind of like pulled me back, and I felt this strong urge to sit down again and continue writing. And, so there were many pages of ideas on the program. And I remember once I finished, I said, is that enough? Can I go now? And it was like, yeah, you can go now. And that's it. So it was one of my first experiences where when we ask and we quiet down the mind, then we might be able to allow communication to come in. This is not unique like to someone like me. This is a lot of people have experienced this kind of inspiration. Very talented musicians, they are born with that kind of communication. A lot of painters and artists, I think, they are very talented, and they get these pictures, images that come through to them. And, we've seen and we've heard of painters, writers who once they can't stop because it's just downloading. It's just downloading. And when I experienced that for the first time, I was elated. I said, wow, this is what it feels like. It's so amazing. And I knew they weren't my thoughts. They weren't mine. I like to think they're mine and I'm smart enough, but they weren't mine.
Mm. And I think when you allow it to just come through you and but not being by
Yeah,
you, there's a
yeah,
freedom within yourself that you don't have to do anything. You're, if I use the phrase, you are connected to source. It just allows it to
yeah,
come through. But I
yeah.
think many of our daily thoughts are blocking it because of who we are, what we think, what we should or would or should not do. If we
What
allow
we
those
should
to
not do.
fall, which
Yeah.
the kind of so you have a kind of sensitivity.
All of us have. Yes, that's right. Ron, what you say is when you allow, then one can have that kind of sensitivity. And the idea is not to expect that it will always be the same and that you will receive it all the time, but it's just allowing as and when it comes, you're present enough to engage with it. It's like someone once told me, the minute you get an inspiration to call someone, call. The minute you get an inspiration to go and get something, go get it. You know, it's that little message that comes through us that very often in our busyness, we push it aside and say, oh, I don't have time, I'll go and get it later. Oh, I don't have time, I'll call this person later. How many of us had this experience when we thought of somebody and somebody called us? Or we call somebody, all of a sudden, yeah, we want to call somebody and they say, hey, I was thinking of you, and oh, you know, I'm glad you called because I really needed to talk to someone. I'm so glad you called. You know, you never know. It's answering, willing to answer that call. I
That's
had a, I, I'll share this incident. I don't normally go jogging in the evening. And there was one evening after dinner, I just had this strong urge, put on your shoes and go jog. And I remember saying, but I don't want to jog. And like, go put on your shoes and get out of the house. And so I put on my shoes and went out of the house, and less than 100 yards from my house, no, actually it's about 200 meters. I was passing like a little junction, and there was a very elderly lady standing at the corner of the junction. And I said, I've not seen this lady before. It's getting dark. What on earth is she doing at the junction? And then I asked her, I said, and then she kind of like waved to me. I went to her and I asked her, are you okay? And she said, I'm lost. I've been standing here waiting for someone to help me. And I go like, wow, you know, God works in a really, really mysterious way. You know, I don't generally jog in the evening, and my family was surprised. You know, you're putting on your shoes. I said, yeah, I am going jogging. But you know, as soon as 200 meters out from my house at the junction, a very elderly lady, and she said, I'm lost. Can you help me get me home? And of course, I you know, she was just like another, you know, couple of blocks from where I stay, and I brought her home. You know, God sent someone to her.
I think that is so important to trust your intuition. As you were speaking, I remembered a case a long time ago now where I didn't trust it, and I was too late, and it was yeah, and I think from that moment I decided to, you know, go with what you feel, even if, yeah, you want this thought comes to call this friend, call them, do this, do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't be blocked by, you know, the fear of an idea or whatever it is. Go for
yeah,
it. Trust yourself, I think, as well.
yeah, yeah.
When you used the word God. How is that to you? Do you see difference, or is there a difference in the spiritual journey, or are they both connected? Because often we grow up, like I grew up with my mum going to church, and that was her way of worshiping. But for me, it didn't fit. How do you see that?
Oh, that's a tough question, Ron. To be honest, I'm in and out of the bus, so to speak. I'm a Catholic. I'm not a cradle Catholic, so I got baptized about 3-4 years ago. I've been going to church for like 10 years, and one day I said, LiiChu, you're either in or out. You need to decide. If you're in, then go all the way. If you're not, why bother even coming to church? But the thing about going to church was that even from very young, so I went to missionary school, from kindergarten. I think kindergarten is nursery, from primary, that would be 7 to 12, and then, secondary for us is like 13 to 17. So I've been in missionary schools, and I'm very heavily influenced by Catholicism. So there were many times when I was in a corner or a bind, and he has always answered my prayer. Even things, this document, I have only 10 minutes to get to the counter, extraordinary events will happen, and somehow the counter will stay open for another 5 minutes. The person will take in my documents, and at events where I'm late for a meeting and I knew there's no way, given the traffic, to be able to get there on time, but I'll get there on time. It looks like it's a 45 minutes, but I get there in 25 despite the traffic. And I remember once I had to, I was attending Formula One sports. There was no way I could get to the circuit, on time. And I remember praying all the way and says, Lord, I only need 2 seats. That's all, just 2 seats, because I have the ticket. But those tickets were, not numbered, even though it is just next to the grandstand. And I said, look, I don't know what's going on. I just need 2 seats. And Ron, it's amazing. I got there despite the heavy traffic. Somehow I managed to get there before it starts. And we went to the sitting area, and everybody was saying, there's no seats. And even there was a couple there, kind of like take a snipe at us and said, we've been here since 11 o'clock to get a seat. What do you think when you get here at 1 o'clock? And they go like, chill, guy, chill. And I said, I believe my Lord will look after me, so it's all right. You can be here at 11 o'clock. Believe it or not, we went down to the 2 rows before we were very close to the circuit. As we walked past, there was this there was a spectator there. Very quietly, under his breath, he said to me and Mel, I have 2 seats if you want. And we said, it looks like you only have 1 seat. And he took his backpack. That's 2 seats over there. I got 2 seats, and we were right in front of the starting point.
Wow.
A lot of people came and went past this group, and this group of spectators are the die-hard fans from UK. They say we follow Formula One, and every year we are here in Malaysia. A lot of people went past them and nothing happened. But the minute Mel and I went past, just under his breath, he says, and he didn't even look up. He goes, I have 2 seats if you want. We got 2 seats right in front of the starting point.
Wow.
And so that's my experience with God. It's like, this is what I'm asking, and I, yield it up to you, and but just let me have it. And these are all the occasions when, I really felt he was there with me. He was there with me, and there were a lot of times when, I get into a spot and he was really there. And so the challenge that I do have is your question, the source and God. Where does it end? Where does it stop? And to be honest, sometimes I'm all right here, and sometimes I'm kind of like off on this side, and I'm still praying to be guided. Sometimes I'm okay, sometimes I'm not, to be honest, Ron. So it is a journey for me.
Because you said sometimes you feel that God is with you. Can it be said as well that God is in you?
I've been hearing a lot about, God is in us, and we are made in the image of our Lord. So if that is, then He would be in us. Sometimes I have this thing that, what if, it's a game that our Lord play up there, and we are just kind of like a game that, the source energy. And where I'm sometimes weak is exactly what you say. If God is in us, we can make things happen. And if we can make things happen, then where does that put God as the Almighty? And, as a Catholic, we have only one God, and Jesus came and died on the cross for us. How can you explain that resurrection? Someone said if he did not resurrect, it would ended up a nice, good story of a prophet who came and can do miracles, but he died. But the fact that he resurrected, and I think that's the part that, to me, makes the difference in the belief that he was resurrected. I mean, which human being has been resurrected? My knowledge of the Bible is still very shallow. So yeah, it's I hope my priest doesn't.
A few years ago, I used to live where I used to live. About 5 doors down was a church, was a Catholic church, and every day the priest of that church would walk past my house. So I would see him, and he was, all in black with the collar on, and I'll see him every day. Hiya, hiya. Every day was like this, and then as time went by, we saw each other most days. We would stop and speak, and hello, how are you, and so on. And we got to know each other. We got to know each. It's a very interesting guy. So one day he came into my house, and he explained he talked about his life, and he talked about what he did before, and he wasn't the most righteous of people. He did a lot of things when he was younger, growing up, and then he got married, and then he said he had a call from somewhere telling him that he had to leave his marriage, and then he became a priest. He left his country, everything, went to become a priest. And we used to speak, and he spoke, but the way he used to speak, it was more like he was a Buddhist. Yeah, the way he came across, and never once did he ask me to join his church. Never once did he really speak about that. We would just talk about everyday things and, life and consciousness. And in fact, I think he's one of the first people to use this word of consciousness expressing itself in the human body. And I just
Wow.
found it really amazing that, I mean, he looked like a priest. He was a priest, but yeah, but how he
Our
spoke,
kind of priest, right, Ron?
yeah, but how he spoke and how he was with me and how he was so open about his previous life growing up when he wasn't always he did some what we call maybe bad things and all this kind of thing, and how he listened and how we used to laugh. I mean, we used to joke around and laugh and yeah, and I remember one day I think my mum came in and she said, "Who's this guy?" Because she knew I wasn't really into the church. How come you're speaking to this guy? And I said,
Yes.
"Really?" So it's interesting that I think a lot of the reading in Zen was also helped through speaking with this person.
Right.
And I found that at the time I didn't recognize it, but it's only later on when I look back and yeah, wow, how fortunate it was to speak to this man.
Yeah. And it's like he understood both. He's not making a separation.
Not at all. And it was the openness in listening, the openness of just being there. And he brought a sense of, I don't know what he was like when he was in this church, but with me, he had this, laughter and expression and playfulness about him, which I look at now
That's
and I
nice.
see it is his. If I was to describe him, I would say he was a very, spiritual person. Even though I know he
Right.
was a priest, I would say this. So that was a great lesson that I guess no matter what you're wearing, it's not the outside, it's what is coming through you.
Yeah. It's his way of being with you. It sounds. I'm just wondering whether it be his background in Buddhism or Zen Buddhism that allows him to be able to somehow build his bridge with religion. Because you mentioned the word is very spiritual, which uh, I think it's nice. It's it's very encouraging for someone like maybe you and I who are. I'm still on my journey. Are you decided, Ron?
Pardon?
Have you have you decided? Are you here, or is still a journey?
No, I think I was going to ask you the same question. I think it's always an ongoing journey, always learning,
Mm.
always developing. But how I see it now is that is consciousness expressing through all of these 7.5 million people, all through plants, animals, life itself. Is a oneness to it. So
Yeah.
there is not the separation, this connection, which is why things like your distance healing works no matter where you are in the world, because
Yeah.
in reality there is no real separation.
I like that. There's no separation. We are connected. I mean,
Yes.
that's quite a simple, but if we really think about it or reflect on it, it's a very, very powerful statement to make. Like,
And I think it's the simpleness of it and the reality real of it which makes it so in some minds difficult to attain, because we're always thinking it's out there, we've got to look out there, we've got to look out there.
yeah,
But this way of understanding asks you to turn inwards,
right.
and then from that inwards allowing the concepts and ideas to allow them to fall. And you asked a question, you said earlier, then the question comes, who am I?
Yeah.
And from there you see who you are not. You are not then these thoughts. That you're not then just this body. You are not then just this thing that I call me, because you're aware of this me. And then from there, I think an extraordinary shift can happen.
Yes. I think if we can really reflect on even tip of the iceberg of connection, the food that we eat came from somewhere, someone planted it, someone had their love and passion, in planting whatever it is, or even fishing that has the food arrive on the table for me. If we can reflect on that with much humbleness and humility and compassion, then might we be able to start to feel that connection. I like what Stephen said in one of your interviews, the illusion of separation. And very often this separation, we, as baby, we weren't born to know how to separate. We were taught in our education, in our culture, this thing called separation, because that's the only way certain people can, do we want to go into that area, of control, economies, and things like that. But if we could come back to basic, like in the teaching of Tao, when there's a void, only then things can occur. Allowing the space and really allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, to be touched, and transcend beyond the fear of you are different and I'm different, and therefore we need to protect ourselves from what I don't understand. So instead of building the wall, it's building bridges with each other. It's like where you are now, where I am. In terms of race, we are different, but there's so much of connection between us. We speak the same, I want to say we speak the same language, but it's language that we can understand, but we do speak the same language. Our wavelength, it's like we are in the same world. It's like part of you, I have, part of me, you have, and we are able to connect. It's like, what if somehow we are in that sense connected? It would be difficult to hurt someone that we know and we cherish. It's easier to hurt someone when we objectify them, when we look at them as strangers and object. And maybe that's the only way we think we can survive. We are not talking about surviving. We are talking about prosperities. We are talking about abundance. We are talking about a community can thrive in harmony. We're talking more than surviving.
And looking at it like that, our vision of what's possible then expands to limitless proportions. To see life in that way. Because you said about, building bridges, but if we can also look at another way, the bridge is already there. We can walk across at any time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's even better. Yeah. That the connection is already there.
Yes.
But we didn't see the bridge, did we?
Yeah.
You only see the little walls over here, over there.
Yeah. It's like as well, so you walk into a dark room and you can't see anything, it's too dark. Then you switch on the light switch and all these things appear. But all those things were there in the dark. It's just that we had to turn on the light. So if we all
Yeah.
turn on the light switch, yes,
Yeah.
and then we see that it's not that we have to fight and compete. We all already have, and we can, like you said, we can thrive because I think we got so used to surviving.
Yes.
And like you said, that helps, you know, certain people in elite positions who their way of competitiveness has how they function in the world of, you know, being, you have to buy this to be better, to look better, which
Yeah.
serves a, you know, our economy, the economy as it is. But what if we look at it a different way? And so I guess from there we can say, where does this spiritual journey take us? Because right now you're in Malaysia, I'm in UK, but there's connection. And it's not
Exactly.
just us, there's someone in Burma, Bali, New Zealand, Australia, UK, even somebody across the road. So what can happen? And I think the question you said then, who am I, comes to how do I express me in this new way of living?
Yeah. Would that be our next topic?
Yeah, but yeah, and it's ongoing. What as well I liked what you said is that, you know, that even teachers are ongoing on this journey, because I'm sure a lot of people see you and you're doing your practice, and it's great to see as well that you're going on your own journey.
I am a student, always. I'm always learning and I'm always a student. And I will always remember my Aikido master. When I went to learn from him in France, he's always wearing a white belt. I mean, he is the Uchideshi of the founder. Um, May his soul rest in peace. And he's one of the most feared Shihan because he's tough, he's rough, he's very respected. And but when he needs to practice, he wears a white belt, and he always says, "Step onto the tatami with a white belt, a beginner's mind."
Uh, that is such a powerful lesson. He puts on the white belt to do it.
Yeah,
That is uh, I love that metaphor. I love that. That's incredible. Yes.
yeah. He literally put on his white belt, and um, as as a Shihan, he's supposed to have the hakama. He doesn't. He put on his white belt like that was his first day. Just only then you can learn, and humbleness and compassion. And he doesn't tell people he does it. He does it himself. He steps on it. I'm a beginner today. What can I learn today, that will make today be worthwhile? And I always thought that was really very, very powerful, because the truth is sometimes um, knowledge does get in the way of us being creative. When you sometimes know too much, you can't do it. You can't do it this way. You can't do it that way. Versus you just come like, I don't know. I don't know. Can I try that? Why not? I don't know. Let's try it. Let's be curious about this.
I think this leads into a question I have now is, so what have you learned today?
I have learned today that being mindful about what I do, what I think, brings a lot of calmness to me. What I also learned today, Ron, is your experience with the priest that you had. It was such a really rich experience. You know, when two people are open to share with each other and they're not trying to impose their beliefs or their thoughts on each other, something that beautiful occurs for the two of you. Yeah. And for me, that is one of the most powerful learning today. When two people are not imposing on each other their beliefs, their ideas, their expectation of each other, where they just appreciate and celebrate each other as human beings. You know, just the friendship, just just enjoy being in your space and in your company. And I think that is one of my biggest learning. It's that not imposing.
I will ask this question of myself. So today,
Yeah, what she learned today.
I guess it's more of a reinforcing, and the fact your story with your teacher putting on the white belt, I think that's so extraordinary, so wonderful to hear. And also in these chance meetings we met in Singapore, and we've continued through this, and we're here right now. And the possibilities of what can happen if a healing can be done distantly because we're all connected. That means that what is possible is maybe even beyond our wildest imaginations if we look at things in a different way. And what about if all of us who would like to see things in healing be at the foremost of who they are and express themselves as consciousness through the body who they are, what can we do if we all plant little seeds here and there? What fruit can come from this tree?
Yeah, that's nice. That's beautiful.
Okay, Liichu, it's been again a pleasure to speak with you. It's always, you know.
Are we past our time now, Ron?
Yes, and also, do you know what? I guess the step in, like you hear, is on the journey is where we're gonna go next, and what we're gonna learn next, and how can we, you know, like you said, see the bridges there and just build what is possible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been Ranusha Conversation on the Spiritual Journey. I've been speaking with Liichu. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure as always. And hopefully we'll come back for a third time.
Third time, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm enjoying this so much, Ron. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I'll see you soon.